drugs for cancer treatment, you're saving someone's life.
Yeah.
There's nobility to the craft, and I truly do believe in that. And I think that it also has a lot of purpose. And so, yes, you will see more automation, but the automation is going to occur in the jobs that are repetitive and not as interesting, and that also then
From overnight global cues to live Dalal Street moves, we decode what matters for your money today. From stocks to sectors to the top business news, we've got your morning game plan covered. Watch me, Aabha Bakaya, as I bring you the opening bell action Monday to Fridays, 9:05 a.m. only on India Today.
From how the markets move today to what's setting the stage for tomorrow. From tariffs to taxes, mutual funds to your daily stock queries. Join me as I decode the biggest wealth-creating ideas for you at the closing bell. Watch me as I bring to you the Business Today show every weekday at 3 p.m. only on India Today.
Good morning and welcome. You're with us here on Market Opening on our collab show between Business Today, India Today TV, just after 9. Let's tell you what's making headlines this morning. India's soft diplomacy with the EU set to yield some hard results. Both sides set to sign a trade deal this afternoon. Commerce Secretary confirms all negotiations are complete. 3 deals spanning trade, defense and student and workforce mobility are likely to be signed. Reports suggest that the trade agreement will come into effect early next year. United States goes ballistic as India and the EU move closer to a mega trade deal. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says that while US was tariffing India, Europe financing a war against itself by signing a trade deal with India. President Trump, meanwhile, threatens 25% additional tariffs against South Korea for not ratifying a trade deal, even as the US Supreme Court again fails to rule on the legitimacy of tariffs. An incredible day for silver and gold. Silver surges 12% in a single trading day, the largest jump in 7 years, crossing $110 an ounce in trade. Gold crosses $5,100 before both metals retreat a little on profit booking. The yellow metal is up 16% this year, while silver is up an astonishing 51% in under a month. GST cuts doing their magic even 4 months later as Republic Day sales rise at their fastest pace in 5 years. Groceries, apparel and consumer electronics sectors see a windfall ahead of the mid-Feb wedding season. E-commerce platforms also see brisk business, with quick commerce business reportedly rising 25% in the period. US markets close in the green ahead of big tech earnings. Asia trades mixed as South Korean auto stocks bear early losses after Trump flags higher tariffs over trade deal delay. GIFT Nifty up, signaling a positive start for Indian markets this morning. All right, let's take a look at the setup. Today it's really going to be all about the trade deal. So let's kick off with that. India and the European Union are set to ink the mother of all deals later today. In what is being seen as a hedge to Trump tariffs and a major boost for exporters on both sides, India will reportedly sign 3 major deals with the EU, a grouping of 27 nations. The signing caps almost 2 decades of negotiations with both sides trying to shed their dependence on the US and on China. The deal will formally be signed this afternoon at around 4:30 p.m. For more on this, we're joined by Karishma Sudani. Let's go across to her. Karishma, you've been tracking this closely. Give us some of the key highlights of the deal and the significance of it in the current geopolitical scenario.
Aabha, quite a happy day. In fact, just a few weeks ago when you and I were speaking, when the deal with New Zealand was, of course, being announced between India and New Zealand during the end of 2025, we were all looking towards the EU deal, and looks like this is yet another addition to the silver lining of India's FTA progress, and this is being called as the mother of all deals for the very reason that we are signing a deal with 27 countries, which is going to give us flexibility and a free market access across various sectors, especially at a time when US has been so stringent with its tariff policy. Now, labor-intensive sectors like that of textiles, footwear, say apparels, gems and jewelry are going to get a great benefit out of this deal. And once the announcement comes by today, post which it will be, of course, going through the legal nudging, which will take around, say, 6 months. And India's Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agarwal has said that in the beginning of 2027, this trade deal could be well implemented, which means that from a year to now we'll have a diverse access across various other markets, which will keep our various sectors, including labor-intensive sectors, or you talk about the higher ones, which could be automobiles or pharmaceuticals, or even making things easier on the services front for both Indians and people of Europe.
Okay, fantastic. And any other details that we're anticipating, Karishma, post 4:30? That's when we're seeing the official signing, the deal likely to go into effect, I think, early next year. Anything else that the markets will be waiting to hear on the back of the signing of the deal?
Well, the signing could actually take some time, but the announcement will be done today. This is because there has to be some legal ratification where it needs to be approved by the EU Parliament, which could take about, say, 6 to 7 months. This is what the officials are conveying us. But the fact that the EU delegation was here yesterday, and the fact that it took more than 20 years for this to happen, where both the countries are now sitting and waiting to just announce the deal, with all talks positively concluded without any deadlocks. Let me tell you, Aabha, without any deadlocks. That's the point, because a lot of sensitive sectors privy to both India and EU have been taken care of, which means that this deal is not just out of mutual interest, but it is out of how the geopolitical situation today has convinced both the countries to look beyond issues and to make a benefit out of this mutual cooperation. So let's hope that once the announcement goes by, 6 months legal procedures, and maybe end of 2026, or safe to say, like India's Commerce Ministry has shared with us, beginning of 2027, this could be implemented.
Okay, fantastic. Karishma, thanks for joining us on that, and we'll of course come back to you and get you live updates of the deal being announced a little later this afternoon. The other big story we're tracking for you this morning is, of course, the bullion rally, and continues and at a breakneck speed. Metals are at record highs, MCX gold and silver hitting fresh all-time highs. MCX gold jumping 2,100 to 1.58 lakh rupees to be specific. MCX silver surging 20,000 rupees to 3.55 lakhs. Those are new record highs, and remember, we've been seeing precious metals just break all kinds of records and move at a breakneck speed, particularly in light of the current safe haven environment that we're seeing. So silver, of course, does have investment demand as well, but currently this leg of the rally is clearly driven by what's happening geopolitically. So we're continuing to see that huge run up across precious metals, and I think the whole focus of the markets will continue to be placed of course, on some of those metal-related counters. We've seen that over the last couple of weeks and it's likely to continue as well. But outside of that, we're still tracking earnings. We've got companies reporting such as Asian Paints, Tata Consumer Products, Marico will also be reporting numbers. Vodafone Idea is scheduled, and Raymond, Motilal Oswal Financial Services, CG Power, Metro Brands, some of the other names that we'll be tracking as markets sort of get going this morning. Just counting down to opening bell. We've also got Dharmesh Kant joining us, Head of Equity Research, Chola Securities. Dharmesh, peak of earnings season, but the market is clearly focused on those bullion prices.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is more of a Trump trade which is happening on the bullion prices because the noises is made keeps the market tentative, and every day is a new day because you don't know how the things are settling in. Sometimes South Korea becomes a favorite nation a few months back, and now again this is he's threatening to put a levy out there. So these things are keeping the, because of uncertainty playing out of the bullion prices at all-time high, and it's getting into a frigid state. And the other thing which is helping is the, continued weakness in the dollar index. So all put together, I mean, it's a tough trade to take from here, but if you are a brave warrior, you can continue to hold on the bullions.
Okay, that's a quick take on bullion. We've opened flat, of course. A positive bias, though, today. Let's take a look. I think some movement in pharma, some movement in IT. We've got, I think, auto looking weak, private banks looking weak, but we've got pharma moving, we've got IT moving. So some of those pockets that seem to have some momentum, and PSU banks are moving. So let's pull up some of those PSU names, see where the action's concentrated. The broader market's also intact today, just a marginal green uptick at this point of time. Small cap index also up about 0.2%. So looking good in that sense. We've got a few other names that we'll be tracking on earnings, so let's actually keep an eye on those as well. That may have reported late on Friday. We'll continue to see some amount of reaction coming in there on some of those as well. And of course, some of the smaller pockets on the back of the trade deal news. Remember, Axis is in the news. They're looking at raising funds via bonds if market conditions are favorable. Deposit growth also expected to stabilize in line with credit growth in about 15 to 18 months. Axis commentary will be in focus. They do see margins declining in Q4 as repo rate cut plays out as well, and they've been cautious about their retail portfolio growth as well. So that's on Axis from the banking space. I do want to, there you have it, 3.5% up this morning. Let's focus on that for a moment. Shell, good morning. It's the banks. We're seeing some amount of action on Axis, specifically in the private sector, and the PSU banking names also seem to be having some kind of an uptick this morning.
Well, good morning to all, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the monthly expiry of January as far as FNO is concerned, so a lot of volatile trade is expected. More importantly, Nifty is the worst performing index in the month of Jan globally, down 4%, and we still have 3 sessions left for the budget run-up. Let us see what happens, but yes, there is a bounce back happening on PSU banking stocks, in particular the broader PSU segment as well. Bank of Baroda, Canara Bank in top shape. What can I say about metals? Look at National Aluminium. It hit a high of 379, and Aabha, you've marked Hindustan Zinc, 733 is what we've seen, and metals all the way. Aabha
continues to be. I want to just pull up JSW Steel as well. Higher steel prices looking to offset high raw material costs in Jan to March, and margins expected to be better. Demand outlook is strong as well. They're planning to incur capex of 1 lakh crore over the next 4 to 5 years. That's a commentary on JSW. It's up about 1.5% this morning. So I want to get your view, Dharmesh, on a JSW, but also then I'll move to the banking pack because Axis is on fire today. Meanwhile, an IndusInd is actually seeing a knock and it's down 3-4% this morning. So lots of action, whether it be the metals pack or banks. In the metals, in fact, Hindustan Zinc is also up almost 4% today.
Yeah, I mean, metals are seeing the upside traction quite healthy, and I mean, JSW Steel reported a very good set of numbers. Even they were blended realization was up, and the management sounded very aggressive on the capacity expansion front. So from 35 million tons per annum to 50 is what they are targeting in next 3 to 4 years, and at a very reasonable cost. I mean, 31,000 crores of capex for such a capacity expansion is quite reasonable in light of today's replacement cost. So they are getting things right. They are getting the operational efficiencies right. The salary pipeline, if they comes into play, it will again be a good cost saving and operating efficiencies will be there. Some may argue that valuations are, at all time highs of 10-year average and all. But I think in the light of the environment and going into the infra spending which is happening in the country with safeguard duty in place, ferrous producers will continue to have upside traction, and that JSW Steel stands a good bet. And we have been recommending this for 4 5 months consistently. Coming to the banking space, I mean, numbers reported by the private sector, large caps like Kotak, Axis, and IndusInd Bank were fairly in line and quite stable kind of a number. So they had a good traction in the SME and the corporate loan book. Retail was a bit a conservative space where unsecured credit, particularly the credit card loans and the personal loan space, they have been going slow. Retail microfinance credit is also under checks. But the commentary has been this retail microfinance segment is now the worst is over and things are likely to improve. Everybody reported growth in the asset quality with credit cost coming down. So that's a good point for them. IndusInd Bank, I would like to highlight because management is undergoing a clean overhaul of the system and their consumer banking grew by 18%. What did not do well was the corporate side and some agri loan side. SME management highlighted is likely to pick up. They are getting rid of low yielding assets and high expense liabilities. So this transition will go for next 3 to 6 months. And I think this is the right time if you are an investor looking for strong, meaningful outsizing gains. So this is the right time to get into IndusInd Bank. Wait for a year, it will give you a meaningful return. So that's the cheapest on the valuation metrics from long-term perspective. Otherwise, Axis and Kotak also doing fairly well. I think they will catch up with public sector peers on the loan growth portfolio soon.
Okay, fair enough. Lots of action on the banks this morning. I know they're measuring largely in line, but markets are punishing those numbers. Kotak, they're reading it as a miss. Axis, they're reading the commentary decently, I guess, because that's up 4%. But Kotak and IndusInd both seeing cuts of 4% this morning. That's on banking. I also want to mark the FMCG names because or consumer names. We've got some action on Marico in terms of news. So let's pull that up for you. Acquisition, of course, of PVR Snacks. And I think Godrej Consumers on earnings is seeing a reaction as well. So Marico, not too much of a stock price movement, but keep an eye on that. It will also report earnings. And meanwhile, Godrej Consumer, let's pull that up for you. That one's actually seeing a bit of a hit post earnings. It's down 4-5% right now. Profit is the one that's disappointed here largely. Revenue, EBITDA margins came in higher. They beat poll projections. But we've also seen an interim dividend declared. But clearly, the profit was flat, and that's what markets are reading into right now. Shell, lots of key earnings and reactions. Shell? Shell has gone into a coma staring at the screen, so I'm not sure. I think it must be those bullion prices that he's focusing on, but we'll come back to him in just a moment there. Advanced decline ratio, however, was looking good at the start of trade, but now we've kind of slipped into the red. So 24946, just as we were talking, down 100 points of pressure building. And I would go so far as to warn that some of that pressure is largely coming from the mix of IT and banks. Look at IT also now slipping into the red. We did see a marginal up move on opening, but slipping into the red there. So some pressure coming in. Let's pull up the list of losers this morning just to get a sense of where that pressure is building. And remember, this is the week that we're also counting down to budget. And while the markets may not be anticipating too much of traction from the budget, it is going to be a week where there'll be a little bit of wait and watch. M&M is the other counter that's actually been losing ground, down about 4%, even over the last week at this point of time. And we'll try and sort of analyze some of the reasons for the investors looking a little sheepish on M&M. But it is right now seeing some amount of consistent selling pressure. So on your screens, it's definitely the banks, some amount of a shaving off on the stocks like a Maruti, for instance, a Wipro. Cipla's down 1.5%, Apollo Hospitals, but it's the banks all the way. Kotak, IndusInd, HDFC, we're seeing all of the key names seeing some amount of pressure on the back of earnings results. Shell, coming back to you, it's all about earnings this morning, and I have to say, banks and IT, pressure building up there. Okay, we'll go back to Shell in just a moment. Dharmesh, in fact, looking at M&M, and I'm just trying to look up, the charts. But what's making the markets jittery on a Mahindra and Mahindra, and why are we seeing this kind of a shave off? We've seen it last week as well. Again this morning, 3-4% down on an M&M. What's going on here?
Aabha, I think it's more to do with the news flow surrounding the EU trade deal, and with import duty being cut from 110% to 40% and subsequently to 10% going forward. That clarity is awaited because it is 15,000 euro plus kind of a vehicle, so it's 20-25 lakh segment where M&M is quite active. There most of the SUVs sold in that price range. We have to see whether this is on ICE or on EVs, so that will bring more clarity into the profitability of these companies. In fact, everybody will be impacted, be it M&M, Maruti or Hyundai. And they were trading at all-time high valuation multiples as well. So more of a profit taking ahead of this announcement. But let the fine print come first, and then I think a more constructive analysis can be done.
In fact, you hit the nail on the head, Dharmesh. Let's pull up some of those auto stocks. Tata Motors, Mahindra, even names like a Bharat Forge, all kind of waiting for details of the trade deal. Now remember, on auto in particular, India plans to reduce car import tariffs from 110 to 40%, which means increasing competition for local manufacturers. So we're seeing Tata Motors, M&M in particular, in focus on the back of that. And we're seeing that pressure on auto. As Dharmesh mentioned, even Maruti, and Maruti is one of the big losers right now in morning trade right now. So opening up the market, but more competition for local players. And we're seeing that kind of play out in terms of how retail investors are addressing some of these counters. So keep an eye on that, and I think as clarity emerges, we'll probably get a better sense. But right now, it is definitely cuts of about 1% or so across the auto majors. I just also want to touch on some of the PSU banking names. Let's pull up an SBI, let's pull up a Bank of Maharashtra. I just want to get a sense of what's happening there as well, because the private names are definitely seeing an earnings impact, and that's really where we're seeing pressure building up today. On the PSU side, SBI is steady right now, and let's pull up some of the other key names and just take a quick check on how they're doing on that part of the market. Little bit of pressure, but no major moves on that front. So no sentiment action building up there. It's clearly about the private banks and about the earnings this morning. Markets now down about 0.5%. Nifty is also down about 100 odd points right now. So it's looking negative, and the advanced decline ratio also possibly tilting after the early moves that we saw this morning. In terms of other movers in the broader markets, we're definitely seeing some amount of action, of course, and a few other names. For example, in Ultratech Cement is up about 3% right now. Hindustan Copper is moving, Vedanta. So the entire metals pack, of course, on the back of continued action on some of those prices, are moving and continuing to see strength. Cement is playing out as a theme. Grasim, Ambuja, Shree Cement. So the entire pack, Ultratech, is actually moving this morning. I want to get your take on that one, Dharmesh, because cement has otherwise been fairly quiet of late, but definitely seeing some amount of traction across the board today.
Yeah, I mean, for the last 2 quarters, what we were seeing in cement, the volume traction was there. Even in the monsoon season, there was a volume traction happening, but price traction was not happening. So net of discount cement prices were slightly lower on a blended basis rather than seeing an uptake. And that was the reason why we see the continued selling in the cement stock, and the valuations for cement companies are always at a higher multiples. But coming to December and January, the traction has been there on the price front as well. And this quarter, we are expecting 2 to 3% kind of a blended realization uptake for all the cement companies, with the volume growth of either high single digit or low teens. Ultratech came out with a very strong set of numbers, both on the volume front and the blended realization front, and that's the reason why the EBITDA pattern also went up. It was partly to do with the acquisition of India Cement and the other company, Kesoram Industries. But going forward, I think we are entering into think of cement season, so it will continue to find traction. 10-15% gains on all these larger players can be expected. Ultratech remains a top pick out there.
All right. So that's on cement. Meanwhile, gold, silver prices continue to surge. We've got COMEX gold moving 5,110 rupees. That's up 2%, and silver $115.5. That's about 14%. I mean, just look at those prices. It's been an incredible rally at the start of the year. And in fact, we've seen astronomical moves every single day when it comes to gold and silver, as you can see on your screens there, and it doesn't look like it's there's really any stopping that up move, at least for the moment. So if you're invested and if you're continuing to invest even in small parts, clearly there's a lot of value on the table currently, but this is an ongoing conversation. We'll leave it here for now. Do tune in a little later in the day. We'll be bringing you all the action around the announcement of that mega trade deal. Thanks so much for watching.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. We start the last day of FNO expiry for the month of January on a very painful note. Nifty is down 100 points. Nifty Bank down 355. Small cap index has also slipped 100 points. On its Friday's close, Nifty was already the worst performing index globally as far as the monthly loss is concerned, which now totals about 4.2%. Pain all around except for the metals pack, and that's because gold and silver are doing immensely well in the markets, above $5,100 for gold as far as the ounce price is concerned on COMEX, and above $118 an ounce for silver. Fresh record highs, needless to say. A lot of volatility coming in, but pain all around. If you remove the metals pack, advanced decline is in terrible shape. If you look at the number of shares that have lost ground, there are 1722 shares that are down compared with the 800 that are in the green. So it's an easy 1:2. For every one share in the green, there are two falling. And apart from the metals index and the PSU banking index, nothing much should be read into the market. Selling across the board. People are now getting ready for the budget. If you are asking for a silver lining, well, the market is getting lighter and lighter ahead of the budget, which is on this Sunday. But pain all around. Amongst top losers in terms of volumes, you have HDFC Bank, 906 rupees, down 1%. And it's only the first 15-20 minutes of trade. Already 953 crores is traded. You have Reliance, M&M and Eternal slipping amongst the top 5 traded. Only Axis Bank in the green on news that the company might be raising some funds, 3.6% higher. But Hindustan Zinc, Hind Copper, National Aluminium and of course Vedanta are the very few bright spots that we are seeing in the market. Arpit Beliwal joins us from Motilal Oswal Securities. Namaste Arpit ji. इस रात की सुबह कब होगी? Nifty now down 100 points, 24,960.
Very good morning to all. So over if हम निफ्टी के बारे में बात करें, so निफ्टी का अगर वीकली स्ट्रक्चर देखें, so from past few weeks it's performing lower structure from last 3 weeks, and definitely we have seen a very brutal selling from its all-time high, almost a corrective move of 1300, 1400 points from 26,350 levels. On the daily scale, the index is still forming low-rise, low-low structure, and it is hovering below its 200 DEMA. So that is a sign of a concern. So overall sense is that being today's monthly expiry, definitely the volatility would be on the rise. Along with that, 25,150, 25,200 would be a key hurdle zone. Till it doesn't surpass above that levels, our stance would be the overall sell-on bounce. At the same time, 24,800, 24,850 is the previous support zone. So Nifty range has shifted lower in between from 25,200 to 24,800 levels for the expiry day point of view. Our sense would be bias would be negative till it closes below 25,200, 25,200 levels. Now talking about Bank Nifty, so Bank Nifty also, if we see, Bank Nifty was so far resilient till the previous week, but last week even Bank Nifty has seen a corrective move of almost 1,500 points from higher levels. Technically, Bank Nifty is trading in a broader range from last almost 8 weeks between 58,500 to 60,000. This week it has broken the previous swing low. So as hence the overall upside is capped with immediate hurdle around 58,500, 58,750, and Bank Nifty is also likely to underperform. So overall Nifty, Bank Nifty both the underperform is likely to continue with a key level of Nifty for 25,200 and Bank Nifty 58,600 on intraday basis for the expiry point of view. 600 on intraday basis for the expiry point of view.
Okay. Any positive stocks that look good on the charts? Arpit, a view on the metal space. What would attract you on the long side?
Overall, looking at the overall market breadth has been very favored in the bear's grip, apart from few counters, such as particularly metal index. So if we talk about metal index as a whole, it has been a huge outperformer, forming high rise, high low structure on the monthly scale. And within that, I prefer would be Vedanta. So if you look at the chart structure of Vedanta, it is in a very strong uptrend. The base of the stock is shifting higher on the weekly scale. From past 4-5 weeks, it is forming high rise, high low structure, and the setup is clearly on the uptrend side. So looking at the overall setup wise, Vedanta would be a preferred pick. One can go long with keeping stop loss of 680 for an upside move towards 720, 750. Apart from that, if you talk about selective mid cap banks, and within that, if you talk about Fed bank, on the positive side, the setup looks relatively strong. And looking at the setup on the weekly setup, a range breakout above 278 levels holding in spite of market weakness, that clearly indicates the dominance is there for the bulls by the in the mid cap space. Federal Bank looks good for 300 plus levels with support around 270.
Okay, not sure if you've already covered all of those banking earnings, so I'll just wait to see if we've already gone through that. But M&M, I want to bring that up, and some of the other auto majors. Do you just see this as a momentary sort of wait and watch, Arpit, on names like M&M, even Maruti Tata Motors this morning, or do you think that perhaps it's time to do a little bit of profit booking on some of these?
If you see overall auto index has been relatively resilient in last couple of months. Though in last couple of weeks we have seen definitely a corrective move in the bigger trend. But if you look at the chart chart of M&M, so technically if you see the setup on the monthly setup, it is still strong. Though this month it has seen a corrective move from 3,800 levels. But I think level wise 3,200, 3,300 would be a good support zone. Where if we are looking from a long term perspective, that would be a good entry point around 3,200 level, 3,250 levels. So for M&M, I think 3,300 will be a good support zone. One can add at that levels near 3,200, 3,300 levels with major support around 3,100. Slowly steadily the stock can head again back to 3,600, 3,800 levels. Apart from that, if you talk about Tata Motors is relatively in downtrend and it's better to avoid. So it's better to stick with the outperforming counters within the sector and lead the front going forward.
Okay.
Let's look at IndusInd Bank. There's a massive support coming in at 850 levels. In fact, the low for today was somewhere like 848 or so, and from then on a nice supply of good buying coming in. 880, this could also be short covering. Keep an eye out on that. Axis we've marked many a time. Large block deals happening on HDFC. Today's low was 905. We are at 913. So that's again a good round of short covering that's happening. You have strength coming into metals. 188 low for Tata Steel, now at 189.70. And of course, stocks like India Cement, Karur Vyasa Bank, the entire Adani group seems to be in top shape. Aabha.
That's right, and also, a lot of these also news-based. Adani, of course, Adani Green Power saying they're not parties to the US SEC complaint. They're in discussion with the SEC, so slight, mildly positive sentiment on that one. And a few others on the back of earnings, Karur Vyasa as well, positive earnings coming in there. So that's why we've got that happening. And from the broader markets as well, a whole bunch. A little bit of pharma. Torrent Pharma's reported earnings. It's positive there for them. Cipla is also reported. They're focusing on Eli Lilly's obesity drug over the generic Ozempic. And that's a negative near term, but strategic positive for the counter. So that's why we're seeing a little bit of focus on some of those pharma names this morning as well. Cement, we're definitely seeing it as a trend. Metals as a trend. We talked about JSW earlier. Arpit, from a whole host of these stocks in news, which one's catching your eye?
So definitely, if you talk about the overall metal index, metal has been a huge outperformer in last 3 to 6 months, and this is silver lining where we have seen the outperformance continue along with the commodity cycle that is playing out really well. So as we already discussed, the counters that relative looks strong is from the metal spaces, Vedanta and Hindalco. So looking at the setup wise, definitely Vedanta looks very strong. If you talk about JSW Steel, so the bigger trend is positive, but though the stock is moving slowly, steadily higher, so I think JSW Steel we can see 1200, 1250 on the cards. But for the momentum play, the counter that has to go out would be Vedanta. So very strong uptrend, forming higher rise high low structure on the weekly and monthly setup. Looks good for another 8 to 10% rally towards 1050 levels. So I think from the metal back, Vedanta would be a preferred pick, followed by JSW. And one more counter that is on there on radar would be Hindalco. So Hindalco, after a gap up opening, nice range break on the weekly scale. I think it's definitely head towards the four-digit figure in next 2 to 3 weeks time frame, 1000 plus levels. So this would be a preferred base within the metal space going forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, a fresh record high on Karur Vyasa Bank, 6.6% higher, very, very heavy volumes as well. About 56 lakh shares have been traded. So this is an interesting stock to look at. Apart from that, strong volumes coming into Home First. This is at 1175, 5.6% higher, 7 lakh shares traded. We've already marked Adani stocks. HUDCO doing well, a percent higher, 198 for you. This is already 95% of 5-day average traded, and of course Chennai Petro. So these are some stocks which are showing signs of green, and the market, ladies and gentlemen, volatile as volatile can be. Nifty now above 25,000, 33 points higher, a speck of green on Bank Nifty, Sensex and small cap index as well. Aabha.
It is, like it or not, it is about the macro factors this week. Whether it be the budget, whether it be the trade deal. So earnings, sure, individual stock action on the back of that, but I think overall market momentum is going to be on the back of some amount of those indications coming in terms of the macro environment. Quick note on PVR Inox, let's just pull that one up because they've sold a stake in Z Maze to Marico, which was a positive cash unlocking for the business. Let's pull that up for you. And Marico not reacting too much, and PVR Inox also not too much there. Godrej Consumer was a disappointment on earnings. Arpit, anything on Godrej Consumer, or largely, from the FMCG consumer space, which is a more attractive counter, or do you feel perhaps stay away altogether?
If we see from the FMCG pack, very selective counters are outperforming. Majority of the counters it's still in downtrend. Particularly talking about Godrej Consumer, stock is trading in a broader range between 1,080 to 1,250 levels. So today, after a gap down opening, you're seeing good recovery from the low levels. But looking at the monthly and the weekly setup, it's still better to avoid counter from this space and avoid Godrej Consumer from a medium term to long term perspective. However, if we talk about one counter that looks relatively better on the buy and dips counter would be Tata Consumer. So when the FMCG index has seen a corrective phase, Tata Consumer is still trading in its life high territory, consolidated between 1100 to 1200 levels. So it kinds of a buy and dip counter. Stock corrects near 1100 levels, definitely to a good buy. Where the market volatility is very high, so it's better to stay with the selective defensive niche. So Tata Consumer is relatively strong. Good buying zone would be around 1100. 1120 levels with support of 1050 for an upside move towards 1200, 1250 zones.
strength, ladies and gentlemen, now fairly evident in the market. The Sensex now up 241 points. Is this a bout of short covering? Because we also have the monthly expiry of January today, or is this again a volatile session? Only time will tell. But recovery, RECL from a low of about 360 is now at 363.5. BEL from the defense pack from a low of 413. A lot of recovery happening in BDL, which is Bharat Dynamics, a low of 1410, now 1425, and of course State Bank of India, Canara Bank, Bank of Baroda, Indian Bank, and of course PNB, all recovering from intraday lows. Metals is where the action is, and metals is where the traders are very active on the long side. Aabha.
All right, I think we'll leave it there this morning. Arpit, thanks so much for joining us. Let's see how the day unfolds. It is definitely volatile, but right now moving back into the green. SPI looking good at this point, so some amount of might coming in from there, and we're seeing a little bit of a higher uptick on the index as well. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more updates in just a few moments.
Namaste.